I bumped mine. Okay.
Hey. All right.
Yours is good and mine's frozen.
Uh-oh. How are you guys? I hope that you guys are having an awesome night. I'm Tiffany. I'm from Push Counseling. And it's so good to see you guys tonight. But I have a special guest with me, Dr. Brandon Brown from Specific Chiropractic Centers in Richardson. So go ahead and introduce yourself. I won't do that for you.
No, you did a great job. Yeah, so my name is Dr. Brandon Brown. I am the clinic owner and operator of the Specific Chiropractic Centers in Richardson. We actually have 2 offices in Texas, so we have another one that's out in Fort Worth. And then we have 17 offices all across the United States. So with about 25 docs, I think maybe just a little bit more, you can find offices all the way from Kauai, Hawaii to Boston, Massachusetts. So we've got offices all over the place, multiple docs all offering the same thing. So depending on where you go, no matter what, the office layout might be a little bit different. Obviously, we've got the famous blue couch that everyone likes to come do, the Specifically Speaking show, which is going on mine. That's what I titled this since I haven't got to do one this week. And my stuff is frozen, so I'm just going to make this super awkward, and hopefully it's working. Because it says it's going, but it's frozen, so I hope that's working. If it's not, we'll just use this one. But yeah, it's a little bit about me. I know, as most people do, I met Tiffany through social media, as most of us meet nowadays.
Shout out to Courtney Kayla.
Yeah, and so just connected over social media. She came by my office, asked me a little bit about what I did, talked to me about what she did, and then we came up with the idea of, hey, let's jump on here, let's do a Facebook Live, and just answer some questions for you guys. So on yours, hopefully, some people might be jumping on. If people are on mine, I have no idea. I can't see you, but hello, everyone. I hope it's working. Yeah, so I'll let you kind of...
Right.
Tiffany's running the show here. I'm just here.
Well, we're glad to have you. So, my first question is, I know a lot of people struggle with having migraines. I had migraines all through college. People kind of deal with it, but they don't really know what it's about. So tell us, what are migraines, and then what causes them?
Ooh, so that's a deep one. So the second one is a super deep one. That's the one where I usually cause a little bit of drama with some people when I share my opinions about it. So when it comes to a migraine, a lot of people, no offense to anyone who gets headaches, listen, I get headaches are bad. I had a wife that kind of struggled with kind of in between where it was headaches and migraines. She would kind of go back and forth. Really the biggest difference is just the massive neurological component within a migraine. So a headache tends to just be tension in the head. It tends to be some pain. When it comes to migraines are like a neurological storm going on within the body. So they can have a lot of different presentations. Some people get pressure and pain in the eyes, in the face. It may affect one side or the other. Usually their head feels, a lot of people describe it different ways. They're it feels like needles going into my head in a bunch of different areas. Some people describe it as nails, so really strong points that are going through there. A lot of times they feel it down into their neck. They have all kinds of sensitivities, so light, sound sensitivity, smell sensitivity, the stuff where people like to call triggers, which we can get into that later if we want, because that's another fun one that I like to talk about. But really, that's the biggest thing that I see is that migraines really have, not that headaches don't, headaches tend to be more of a circulation issue, which can further down the road be connected to neurological. But for the most part, when you're talking about migraines and you really dive into that, a lot of people who even struggle with them, you see them talk about it. The biggest difference is it's a neurological storm that is going on within my body. And that's really the biggest difference that I've seen in the stuff that I'm researching. There is some crossover in what happens in the body and everything like that. So there are, but when we're talking about this stuff, the thing that makes this so difficult is that no two are the same, and everyone's symptoms are a little bit different. So that's the problem when we try to find a one-way fix-all solution. That's why, really I started doing what I was doing. And then I know your next question was what causes them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically what I've seen, there's a lot of stuff that people are going to say out there. I've heard people say, well, you're just dehydrated. I've heard people say it's triggers, just remove these certain triggers, whether it's wine or chocolate or coffee, which we all know are the 3 things that everyone loves.
Yes.
I know in my life.
I will not remove those.
Exactly. So that's really hard to say, hey, take something that you really love and just take that out of your life. Then there's some other things that can be associated with it, different triggers on whether it's weather, whether it's light, sound. There's all kinds of different things that go on when people are describing that. Typically what I've seen is, especially for someone, the other thing is like, hey, it can be inflammation within the body, and it can. One of the big things for that is you want to be on, an anti-inflammatory diet. And so there are a ton of people out there that make a ton of great recommendations. If that's something that you haven't tried, that's really the easiest way. You don't have to have me. I can help guide you through stuff like that. But for the most part, if you haven't tried something like that, because I've seen people, hey, this is great, that's worked well for me. I got on an anti-inflammatory diet. I cut this out and it got better. So I'm like, hey, that's great. But typically the people that I work with have tried all of those things. They've taken all different kinds of medications. They started getting the Botox injections. They're thinking about surgeries. They have all this stuff going on, and nothing's really connecting. They can't figure out what's going on. And typically what happens is we tie it back to some physical or emotional stress that happened within the body that caused physical stress within the body, and it started really causing the neurological problem. So based on all the research, we can get into a little bit of that. Based on all the research that I've looked up and read, migraines are considered the most common disorder of the nervous system. They're believed to be specifically found within the brainstem, which is this area up here at the top two bones of your neck, which is actually what we focus on in our office. So when I realized that I was helping people with migraines, and then I tied it together with some research that I was reading, that was really, I didn't start out as someone that was just like, hey, I work with people with migraines. It just kind of happened by accident because I had some people coming in and they were getting really good results. And so I had to start doing my research to do what you're talking about, of figuring out what's causing this and why is that happening. So like I said, typically what I've seen is, stress inside your body, whether it's physical, emotional, chemical, whatever that is, it causes stress. It causes certain reactions within your body. So typically what happens is something's going on with the area where your brainstem is, and it's causing 3 different issues that I talk about. So one of them is the flow of CSF. So CSF is cerebrospinal fluid. It's the fluid that sits around your brain and your spinal cord to protect it. That can't flow properly if anything's out of alignment, and it's like, essentially I equate it to like when a bathtub is draining, and if you covered up part of the bathtub drain, it would just drain slower, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine if you put a pressure gauge behind that and you were really trying to push that water through there, the pressure would really increase. So that's what happens, is your body's trying to pump that CSF fluid through there in order to remove the junk from our brain of whenever we bump our head or whatever that is. Like, we see that very prevalent in football players, but because we're not hitting our heads every day, we do it maybe once every couple months or every couple years, we don't necessarily think about it, but the same thing happens to us. So the CSF flow is the issue. The other thing is when the top 2 bones of your neck get out of alignment with one another, they put almost like pressure on the brainstem, like an Indian burn is what I always call it. So that's a neurological component of putting pressure on it. And then there's also there's an area in your brain called the circle of Willis, which is just the area of where the blood vessels are that actually feed your brain. And then you have 2 vertebral arteries. So when that gets off, you start having blood flow issues to that area. And then you kind of get this, like triad or 3 things that come together that start causing this. So typically what I've seen, I know I probably just lost a lot of you there. Hopefully you stuck with us through that. Typically what I break it down to is, like I said, migraine is a neurological issue, so it's a neurological problem. What we have in our office is some special testing. I think I talked to you about that when you came in here, that we do.
Yeah.
That's specifically for your nervous system. So when I have people come in, I always tell them, listen, if I do the testing and I find what I think I'm going to find, that's how I know whether I'm going to be able to help you or not. And if not, then I'm going to help find whoever can help you. I'm connected with a lot of other holistic docs to find a holistic approach to be able to help you get the answers that you need. I'm not trying to say that I'm the end all be all answer, but we have gotten some really great results for people who struggle with migraines because we have the ability to do that testing to determine if the problem is neurological, which most of the time, from my experience, it is.
Well, you answered all the other questions I had.
That's
so.
okay, but we can get into them because I try not to go too deep, but I'm really passionate about this, so it's hard sometimes to be like, oh, okay.
But it's good info.